Hello students, welcome to lecture number 19 of computer architecture course. So far in this course you've learned all the aspects of MIPS processor, memory, different classifications of memory, and you've also learned about the aspects of direct memory access, the IO peripherals, and so on. Okay, so in the context of uniprocessors we have learned everything whichever is part of the third year undergraduate level computer architecture course. Today what we're going to focus on is a slightly new topic or newer topic which is known as multiprocessors, and we are going to touch this topic because this is probably going to be an extension of an advanced computer architecture course or research level subjects, if in case you are interested for your future. Okay, so we will not go too deep into this course, but this will be certainly one of the topics that is relevant because you would like to make a bridge to some advanced level topics in case you want to do a research or something in this advanced level courses. So what is a multiprocessor? It's a computer system with at least two processors, and this is in contrast to the uniprocessor which just has one processor. So why it is important? It is important because we would like to replace large inefficient processors with many smaller efficient processors that can deliver better performance per watt. So watt here is signifying the unit of power, so we would like to have a better performance per wattage that is being expended. Sometimes in the parlance of computer architecture it is often known as performance and power together is known as PDP product, which is power delay product, PDP, so or EDP, energy delay product. So this is something like PDP that we are talking about here, better performance per watt. Some designs support operations in the presence of broken or faulty hardware. In that case, if a single processor fails in a multiprocessor with n number of processors inside it, then those systems would still continue to provide services with n-1 processors. Thereby, multiprocessors can improve availability and reliability of your system. Okay, so that is another usage. So second is reliability, availability, and the first is to remove the inefficiency in terms of delivering better or higher performance per watt. So these two are the advantages primarily of having a multiprocessor. Some more basics. What is a cluster? A set of computers connected over a LAN that functions as a single large multiprocessor. So cluster is nothing but a multiprocessor but connected over a LAN. And multi-core multiprocessors, it's a microprocessor containing multiple processors that are all fabricated on a single integrated circuit. So that's called multi-core multiprocessors. So we can think of an example, or we can think of a formula of Amdahl's law. We can modify it in the context of multiprocessors. New execution time can be given as execution time affected by improvement divided by amount of improvement plus the unaffected execution time. This can be reformulated by writing as speed up equals to execution time before divided by execution time before minus execution time affected plus execution time affected by 100. Okay, so this is in case of the 100 processors that we're talking about. And again we can rewrite this formula if we have fraction time affected given as execution time affected divided by execution time before, and therefore the formula can be rewritten as 1 by 1 minus fraction time affected plus fraction of time affected by 100. So this is another way of writing the speed up formula that you see. Okay, so this equation that you see here can be rewritten as this one here. Now let us look at the concept of shared memory multiprocessors, or SMP. A system with multiple CPUs sharing the same memory is called multiprocessor. And in a multiprocessor system, all processes on the various CPUs share a unique logical address space which is mapped onto a physical memory that can be distributed among the processors. So every process has its own unique logical address space which is mapped to a single physical memory which is distributed amongst the processors. And each process can read and write a data item simply using load store operation, and process communication is done through the shared memory. Okay, so it is the hardware that makes all CPUs access and use the same main memory. On the contrary, in systems with no shared memory, each CPU must have its own copy of the operating system, and the processors can only communicate through message passing. Another distinct feature in multiprocessor system is load balancing. So it is useless having many CPUs in a system if processes are not distributed evenly amongst the cores. So when a single ready to run queue that is available, the load balancing is usually automatic. That is, if a processor is idle, its scheduler will pick a process from the shared queue and will start it on that respective processor. Modern operating systems designed for SMP often have a separate queue for each processor to avoid the problem associated with a single queue. And there is an explicit mechanism for load balancing by which a process on the wait list of an overloaded process is moved to the queue of another less loaded processor. Okay, so this is the concept of load balancing. As an example, shared memory multiprocessor Linux activates its load balancing scheme every 200 milliseconds, and whenever a processor queue empties, it will keep doing the work. Now, shared memory multiprocessor can be of two types. First is uniform memory access UMA SMP, which is, as the name itself signifies, hints to the fact that all processors in a multiprocessor share a unique centralized primary memory. So each CPU has the same memory access time because they're all accessing the same physical memory, which is a unique centralized physical memory. Owing to this architecture, these systems are also known as symmetric shared memory multiprocessors. So they are also known as symmetric SMPs. So if you look at the diagram here, all processors has its own one or more levels of caches, but they're all connected, or they're all sharing one centralized primary main memory here. The simplest multiprocessor system has a single bus to which it connects at least two CPUs and a memory. And when a CPU wants to access a memory location, it checks if the bus is free. Then it sends a request to the memory interface module and waits for the requested data to be available on the bus. These multi-core processors are small UMA multiprocessor systems, and shared memory may quickly become a bottleneck for system performance, since all processors must synchronize on a single bus and memory access. So this is the trade-off, or the flip side of having a uniform memory access based SMP, that it may become a bottleneck for system performance since all processors must have to synchronize while using the same bus and the memory access. So this is another diagrammatic view of SMP or UMA SMP. You have the CPUs and its local L1 caches. This is on chip. L1 caches are on chip with the CPU, and then you have or even L1, L2 in this case is on chip with the CPU, therefore they're all within the same box. And you have the L3 cache, which is off chip. So these are the local caches, and they're all connected through a common memory bus with the shared physical memory, which is RAM. The second type of shared memory multiprocessor is known as non-uniform memory access based shared memory multiprocessors. So these systems have a shared logical address, but they have physical memory which is distributed amongst the CPUs. So they have a shared logical address, but there is a unique physical memory which is distributed amongst the different CPUs, and these systems are therefore known as distributed shared memory architectures, or DSM. So you see there is a processor and cache on chip and off chip. Then every processor and CPU has its own set of memory and IO connectivity, and so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So all these 8 CPUs which are part of the multiprocessors, they have their own caches and its own physical memory, okay, in a distributed way, and they're all interconnected to each other through an interconnection network. So this could be pretty much like a cluster that we are talking about. Okay, now let's talk about the caches a little bit in the context of SMP. So to view, or rather the view of a memory held by two different processors is through their individual caches, because that's where the processor looks for the data first in the cache and then inside the RAM. So therefore the first view is through its caches, and which without any additional precautions, okay, which we're going to talk about now, could end up seeing two different values, okay, so which could be a problem. So this problem is referred to as cache coherence problem. So memory in a multiprocessor poses therefore two different problems. First is the cache coherence and second is the cache consistency. So cache coherence, what it means is that whenever the address space is shared, okay, the same memory location can have multiple instances of cached data at different processors. So whenever we are sharing a same physical memory, so you know the different processors that you have, they may have its own multiple instances of cached data, okay, so they could view the caches with its own set of data inside it. We'll do an example, it will be clear. While for consistency, the problem that we are speaking about is in terms of the access time, okay, whenever different access times can be seen by the processors, the write operations from different processors require some model of guaranteeing a sound consistent behavior. That is, there should be some process, okay, some algorithm, some rule by which the processors should be able to see the data, okay. So basically there should be some model for guaranteeing a sound consistent behavior. For example, in terms of the ordering of writes, what is going to be the ordering of writes and so on. So that concept is known as cache consistency, and the cache coherence is about the view of seeing the individual caches by the individual processors, okay. So that's the cache coherence. So we have to, so basically what I'm trying to say here is that basically whenever a multiprocessor is designed, the memory in terms of the memory aspect, both the cache coherence and the cache consistency problems needs to be taken care of while we design it through some algorithms and rules. Okay, let's see this small example. So you have, let's say in the first column you have the time event 0, 1, 2, 3, and then you have the actual event, and you have the third column with the cache contents of processor A, and then the fourth column is cache contents of processor B, and finally the last column is the memory contents, which is the RAM contents of location X. Let's say that the RAM contents of location X was 1 at time instant 0. So in the next time instant at 1, the processor A is trying to read X, for example. So therefore the cache contents for processor A will be 1, okay, because the data will be updated inside the cache. While the cache contents of processor B will still remain empty at time instance 1. In the next time instance 2, the processor B now reads the cache, reads the memory value of X. So in that case, the cache contents of processor A remains 1, as well as the cache contents for processor B is now also 1, okay, and the memory content is anyways 1. Let's say in the third time instance, the processor A now tries to write or store 0 into X, okay. So when you're storing a value 0 into X, so what happens is when you do that, the memory contents of location X becomes 0, the cache contents for processor A also becomes 0, while the cache contents for processor B continues to be holding the value of 1, okay. So therefore what we are trying to see is that after the value of X has been written by A's cache and the memory both contain the new value, which is 0, but B's cache does not. And if B now tries to read, okay, let's say in time instance number 4, if now processor B tries to read the value of X, it will receive a 1, okay. So this is a problem of cache coherence that I'm talking about, okay, that we need to understand. So what can we do? So first is let's define formally what is a cache coherent memory system. So a memory system is coherent if a read by processor P to a location X that follows a write by P to X with no writes of X by any other processor occurring between the write and the read by P, always returns the value written by P, then we know that it's a coherent memory system. Second property is read by a processor to location X, okay, that follows a write by another processor to X location, returns the written value if the read and the write are sufficiently separated in time, okay, and no other writes to X have occurred between the two accesses. So that's the second property that needs to be followed in order to maintain coherency. And third is the problem which is known as the write serialization, which deals more with the cache consistency problem, which is writes to the same location are serialized. That is, if two writes to the same location by any two processors happen, then they must be seen in the same order by all the processors. So for example, if the values 1 and then 2 are written to a same location X, then the processors can never read the value of location as 2 and then later as 1. That should never happen. So it should always read in the same order as it has been written. So it should read 1 first followed by 2. So the first property simply preserves program order. We expect this to be true even for uniprocessors. The second property defines the notion of what it means to be coherent view of memory. That is, if a processor could continuously read an old data value, we would clearly say that the memory was incoherent. And the need for write serialization is more subtle but very important. Suppose we did not serialize the writes, then the processor P1 writes location X followed by P2 writing location X. Then serializing the writes would ensure that every processor will see the write done by P2 at some point. If we did not serialize the writes, then it might be the case that some processors could see the written value of P2 first and then see the written value of P1, maintaining the value of P1, okay, written by P1 indefinitely. Okay, so the simplest way to avoid such difficulties is to ensure that all the writes to the same location are seen in the same order, which is to maintain the write serialization property. Okay, so we are done with the basics and fundamentals of multiprocessors, and we've covered the computer architecture course for third year computer science students. So for doubts, you may just keep reading my slides and going over the slides, and if you have doubts, you can get in touch with me. Okay, thank you.